Sarah Chin looked like any other passenger on Flight 847, quiet, normal, reading her book. But when F-22 fighter jets appeared outside the windows and the captain announced a military salute for the woman in seat 12A, everyone realized the shy traveler beside them was actually a legendary war hero. Before watching full story, comment below from where are you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Sarah Chin walked through Denver International Airport on a cold Tuesday morning. She wore simple blue jeans and a gray sweater. Her black hair was tied back in a small ponytail. She carried a small black backpack over her shoulder. Nothing about her looked special or different from any other traveler rushing to catch their flight. The airport was busy with hundreds of people walking in all directions. Business people in expensive suits talked loudly on their phones. Families with children pushed heavy luggage carts. College students sat on the floor near charging stations with their laptops open. Tour groups followed guides holding colorful flags. But nobody paid attention to Sarah Chin. She looked like just another ordinary passenger heading home from a business trip. Sarah found Gate 23 where her United Airlines flight was boarding. The Boeing 737 sat outside the window, shiny and white in the morning sun. Ground crews loaded bags into the belly of the plane. Fuel trucks drove away after filling the massive tanks. Everything looked normal and routine for Flight 847 from Denver to Los Angeles. She showed her boarding pass to the gate agent, a young woman with a bright smile. "Have a nice flight, Miss Chin," the agent said without really looking at her. Sarah nodded politely and walked down the jet bridge toward the plane. The flight attendants greeted passengers as they entered the cabin. Sarah smiled back but didn't say much. She preferred to keep to herself when she traveled. Her seat was 12A, a window seat about halfway back in the plane. The middle seat was already taken by a man in his 30s wearing an expensive dark blue suit. He had perfectly styled brown hair and was typing rapidly on his phone. His carry-on bag was leather and looked very costly. Everything about him screamed successful businessman. "Good morning," the man said as Sarah sat down. "I'm Mike Torres. Beautiful day to fly, isn't it? Though I have to say I never get used to how early these flights are. I was up at 4:30 this morning to make it here on time." He extended his hand for a handshake. Sarah shook his hand briefly. "I'm Sarah. Nice to meet you." She pulled out a paperback book from her backpack and opened it, hoping Mike would take the hint that she preferred quiet. The book was The Art of War by Sun Tzu, though she held it so Mike couldn't see the title. But Mike was the type of person who loved to talk. "So Sarah, what line of work are you in? Let me guess, you look like you could be in technology. Everyone's in tech these days, right? I'm in medical equipment sales myself. Been doing it for about 15 years now. It's a good business, very stable. Hospitals always need new equipment." Before Sarah could answer, an elderly woman appeared at their row. She looked to be in her 70s with silver gray hair and kind blue eyes. She wore a bright floral blouse and carried a small purse. She seemed nervous as she checked her boarding pass several times. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I think I'm in 12C, the aisle seat. I'm Betty Martinez. This is actually my first time flying alone since my husband passed away 6 months ago. I have to admit, I'm quite nervous about it." Her hands shook slightly as she spoke. Sarah immediately felt sympathy for the older woman. Her entire demeanor changed from reserved to warm. "Of course, Mrs. Martinez. I'm Sarah and this is Mike. Please sit down and make yourself comfortable. Flying can seem scary, but I promise you're in very good hands. These pilots train for many years before they're allowed to fly commercial aircraft. The planes go through detailed safety checks before every flight." Betty carefully sat down in the aisle seat, still looking worried. "You seem to know quite a bit about flying, dear. Are you in the aviation business?" she asked. Sarah paused for just a moment. "I've flown quite a bit over the years. More than most people, actually. But I can tell you from experience that commercial flying is extremely safe. These Boeing 737s are workhorses. They've been flying passengers safely for decades." Mike perked up with interest. "See, I knew you had to be in some kind of technical field. Are you a pilot yourself? That would explain why you seem so calm and knowledgeable about aircraft." He leaned forward eagerly, clearly hoping for an interesting story. "Something like that," Sarah replied vaguely. She looked out the window as the plane began to push back from the gate. Ground crews gave hand signals to the pilots in the cockpit high above. Everything moved with practiced efficiency. What Mike and Betty didn't know was that Sarah Chin was far from an ordinary passenger. Her full name was Colonel Sarah Chin, United States Air Force, retired. Her military call sign was Phoenix, a name that was legendary throughout the Air Force community. She had flown over 200 combat missions in F-16 Fighting Falcons across Iraq and Afghanistan. She had shot down 3 enemy aircraft in air-to-air combat. She had saved the lives of countless soldiers on the ground through precision strikes against enemy positions. But Sarah's most famous mission happened on a scorching hot day in Afghanistan 3 years earlier. A fellow pilot, Captain Rodriguez, had been shot down behind enemy lines. His F-15 Eagle had taken a surface-to-air missile and crashed in hostile territory. Sarah, flying her F-16, had immediately responded to his distress call. Despite orders to wait for backup, she had flown low and slow through heavy enemy fire for over an hour, marking enemy positions and guiding rescue helicopters to Rodriguez's location. She had single-handedly held off enemy fighters until reinforcements arrived, taking multiple hits to her own aircraft in the process. For that mission, Sarah had received the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Silver Star, and the Purple Heart after spending 2 weeks in the hospital recovering from injuries sustained when her damaged F-16 barely made it back to base. Military aviation websites still talked about the Phoenix Rescue as one of the most heroic missions in modern Air Force history. But now, sitting in seat 12A of a commercial airliner, Sarah looked like any other traveler. She had retired from active duty 6 months earlier and was trying to adjust to civilian life. She worked as a consultant for aerospace companies, helping them improve navigation systems and pilot training programs. Today she was flying home to Los Angeles after a week-long project in Denver. The plane finished taxiing and took its place in line for takeoff. Sarah counted 4 other aircraft ahead of them. She automatically noted wind direction, weather conditions, and runway configuration, habits from years of military flying that she couldn't shake. The Boeing's twin engines spooled up to full power, and the aircraft accelerated down the runway. As they climbed through the clouds into brilliant sunshine, Mike continued his attempts at conversation. So Sarah, you mentioned navigation systems earlier. That's a huge field right now with all the advances in GPS technology, autonomous vehicles, drone systems. There's big money in that sector. Do you work for one of the major aerospace companies? Sarah watched the Rocky Mountains shrink below them as they climbed to cruising altitude. I work with complex navigation and targeting systems. Military-grade equipment mostly. The technology is quite advanced, much more sophisticated than civilian GPS. She realized she might have said too much and quickly added, for commercial applications of course. Betty was gripping her armrests tightly during takeoff, her knuckles white with tension. Sarah noticed and gently touched her arm. The hard part is over, Mrs. Martinez. We'll level off in just a few more minutes, and then it's smooth sailing to Los Angeles. Would you like me to explain what all those sounds are? Sometimes understanding what's happening makes it less frightening. That would be wonderful, dear, Betty said gratefully. Those loud noises during takeoff worried me. Sarah explained how the landing gear retracted with hydraulic systems, how the engines changed power settings as they climbed, and how the pilot adjusted flap settings for optimal climb performance. Her explanations were clear and detailed, showing deep knowledge of aircraft systems. Mike was increasingly impressed. You really do know aviation inside and out. Have you considered becoming a commercial pilot? With your background, you'd probably qualify for the major airlines. He pulled out his business card. I know some people in the industry if you're ever interested in making a career change. Thanks, but I'm happy with my current work, Sarah replied politely. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had far more flight experience than any commercial airline pilot, but she couldn't explain that without revealing her military background. 40,000 feet above them, 2 F-22 Raptors were beginning their patrol mission. Captain James Hawk Hawkins and Major Lisa Thunder Thompson were among the Air Force's most elite pilots, qualified to fly the world's most advanced fighter aircraft. The F-22 Raptor was a marvel of technology, nearly invisible to radar, capable of supersonic speeds, and equipped with the most sophisticated weapon systems ever built. Hawk and Thunder had been flying together as a team for 3 years. They had trained at the elite fighter weapons school and had combat experience in Syria and Iraq. Both pilots were considered among the top 1% of military aviators. But even they spoke with reverence about certain legendary figures in Air Force history. Tower, this is Raptor 11 requesting clearance for Patrol Route Alpha 7, Hawk radioed to Peterson Air Force Base Control Tower. His F-22 sat on the runway, its angular stealth design looking like something from a science fiction movie. Raptor 11, you are cleared for takeoff, came the reply. Be advised, we have elevated security protocols today. Intelligence suggests possible threats to commercial aircraft in the Denver to Los Angeles corridor. Your mission is to provide protective escort for any civilian aircraft that may require assistance. In the second F-22, Thunder completed her pre-flight checks. What's the nature of the threat, Hawk? She asked over their secure radio channel. Unknown at this time, Hawk replied. Could be anything from terrorist activity to foreign military aircraft in civilian airspace. Our job is to be ready for whatever develops. Keep your eyes open and your weapon systems hot. Both F-22s took off simultaneously, their powerful engines creating thunder that rattled windows for miles around. They climbed rapidly through 40,000 feet, far above commercial airline traffic. From their high vantage point, they could monitor hundreds of square miles of airspace. Back on United Flight 847, the passengers were settling in for the 2-hour flight to Los Angeles. The flight attendants had finished their safety demonstration and were beginning beverage service. Sarah had managed to read several pages of her book despite Mike's continued attempts at conversation. I have to say, Sarah, you have this very calm, confident presence about you, Mike observed. It's like nothing would rattle you. In my business I meet a lot of people, and I can usually tell who's been in high-pressure situations before. You definitely have that look. Betty nodded in agreement. I noticed that too, dear. When I was worried about flying, you didn't just tell me not to worry, you actually knew what you were talking about. Most people would have just said, don't be scared, without really understanding aircraft systems. Sarah smiled but didn't elaborate. She was used to deflecting personal questions. Military life had taught her the importance of operational security. Never reveal more information than necessary, even in casual conversation. The captain's voice came over the intercom with a routine announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached our cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. Flight time to Los Angeles will be approximately 1 hour and 50 minutes. Weather looks good all the way, so we should have a smooth flight. Sarah glanced out the window and froze. 2 small specks were moving across the sky far above them, traveling much faster than any commercial aircraft. Her trained eyes immediately recognized the distinctive diamond-shaped profile of F-22 Raptors. Military fighters didn't patrol commercial airline routes unless something was seriously wrong. She kept her expression neutral, but her mind began analyzing possibilities. Terrorist threat, hijacking, foreign military incursion? Her situational awareness, honed by years of combat flying, kicked into high gear. She began mentally cataloging exits, noting the behavior of other passengers and assessing potential threats. Mike noticed her suddenly increased attention to the window. See something interesting out there? Just clouds from where I'm sitting. Just enjoying the view, Sarah replied casually. The Rockies are beautiful from up here. But internally she was on full alert. F-22s meant serious business. Something was happening. High above them, Hawk and Thunder received new orders from command. Raptor Flight, we need you to establish contact with United Flight 847, Boeing 737 en route from Denver to LAX. We're running enhanced security protocols and need to verify passenger manifest information. Thunder acknowledged the order and maneuvered her F-22 into position relative to the commercial aircraft. United 847, this is United States Air Force Raptor 12. Please respond on emergency frequency 121.5. In the cockpit of Flight 847, Captain Rodriguez and First Officer Patel exchanged concerned glances. In 20 years of flying, Rodriguez had never been contacted by military fighters during a routine domestic flight. Raptor 12, this is United 847. We read you loud and clear. What can we do for you? Rodriguez responded, switching to the emergency frequency. United 847, we need you to transmit your complete passenger manifest to air traffic control immediately. This is a standard security verification protocol. Please comply immediately. The pilots quickly sent their passenger list through the aircraft's data systems to Denver Air Traffic Control. Within minutes, controllers were running the names through multiple security databases. In the cabin, some passengers noticed the captain's suddenly serious tone over the intercom, though most continued reading, sleeping, or watching movies on their phones. Sarah remained alert, her military training telling her that this was not routine. At Denver Air Traffic Control, Controller James Martinez was staring at his screen in disbelief. The passenger manifest for United 847 had triggered a high-level security flag. One name in particular had caused multiple military databases to light up with alerts. Supervisor Martinez, you need to see this immediately, Controller Martinez called to his shift supervisor. We have a passenger on United 847 with an extremely high-level military clearance flag. Sarah Chin, C-12A. Call sign Phoenix. Supervisor Martinez hurried over to look at the screen. His eyes widened as he read the security profile. Phoenix? Are you absolutely certain? Positive identification. Colonel Sarah Chin, United States Air Force, retired. Combat veteran, multiple decorations including Distinguished Flying Cross, Silver Star, Purple Heart. She's a legend, sir. The supervisor immediately picked up the red phone connecting directly to Peterson Air Force Base Command Center. This is Denver Control. We have positive identification of Colonel Sarah Chin, call sign Phoenix, aboard United Flight 847. Requesting immediate confirmation and instructions. The response was immediate and dramatic. Stand by, Denver Control. We're patching you through to Pentagon Command Authority. Within minutes, the call had reached the highest levels of Air Force Command. Phoenix was not just any retired pilot, she was one of the most decorated and respected combat aviators in Air Force history. Her missions had saved hundreds of lives. Her call sign was spoken with reverence in pilot training schools around the world. Back in the F-22s, Hawk and Thunder received the shocking news from command. Raptor flight, we have confirmed identification of a high-priority military VIP aboard United 847. Colonel Sarah Chin, call sign Phoenix, is traveling as a civilian passenger. Both pilots fell silent for several seconds. Finally, Thunder spoke, her voice filled with awe. Command, did you say Phoenix? The Phoenix. Affirmative, Raptor flight. Colonel Sarah Chin, call sign Phoenix. Are you familiar with that designation? Hawk's response was immediate and emotional. Command, Phoenix is a living legend. She flew F-16s in Iraq and Afghanistan with distinction. Multiple confirmed air-to-air kills, including 3 enemy fighters shot down during a single mission over Baghdad. She's famous for the rescue mission where she saved Captain Rodriguez from behind enemy lines. Thunder added, Phoenix held off an entire squadron of enemy fighters while guiding rescue helicopters through hostile airspace. She took multiple hits but refused to abort the mission until Rodriguez was safely extracted. Her courage under fire is legendary throughout the Air Force. Command confirmed what both pilots already knew. Colonel Chin has been awarded virtually every decoration for valor that the Air Force can bestow. She retired 6 months ago after 20 years of distinguished service. She's traveling on personal leave and is not connected to any security threat. What are our orders regarding Phoenix, Command? Hawk asked. Maintain protective escort for United 847. Given Colonel Chin's status and service record, Pentagon Command Authority has authorized a special recognition salute if circumstances permit. Both F-22 pilots were stunned. A recognition salute was an extremely rare honor, reserved only for the most distinguished military heroes. The fact that Pentagon Command had specifically authorized it showed the incredible respect Phoenix commanded at the highest levels of military leadership. Thunder keyed her radio with excitement. Command, it would be the greatest honor of our careers to render a salute to Phoenix. She's inspired countless pilots, including both of us. Her story is taught in every fighter pilot training program. On United Flight 847, Captain Rodriguez received new instructions from air traffic control that left him confused and amazed. United 847, be advised that your military escort has requested permission to perform a recognition salute for one of your passengers. Colonel Sarah Chin, call sign Phoenix, is aboard your aircraft. She is a decorated war hero and highly respected military aviator. First Officer Patel nearly dropped his coffee. Phoenix is on our plane? The Phoenix? Captain, she's famous. Every military pilot knows that name. She's a legend. Rodriguez was equally amazed. A recognition salute for a passenger? I've never heard of such a thing. This Phoenix must be someone very special. Special doesn't begin to describe it, Captain. Phoenix has saved more lives than we can count. The stories about her missions are incredible. She's one of the greatest combat pilots in Air Force history. Captain Rodriguez made the difficult decision to inform the passengers. This was unprecedented, but if Pentagon Command had authorized a military salute, the passengers deserved to understand what they were about to witness. He picked up the cabin microphone with slightly shaking hands. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain with a very unusual announcement. Our military escort has requested permission to perform a recognition salute for one of our passengers. Colonel Sarah Chin, who is traveling with us today, is a decorated military pilot whose service record commands the highest respect from the United States Air Force. The cabin erupted in whispers and murmurs as every passenger began looking around to identify this mysterious war hero among them. Sarah felt her stomach drop as hundreds of eyes began scanning the cabin. Betty looked at Sarah with sudden understanding. "Sarah? Dear, are you Colonel Chin?" Her voice was filled with wonder. Mike stared at Sarah in complete shock. "You're a colonel? You're Phoenix? But, you said you worked in navigation systems." Sarah's face flushed red with embarrassment. "I do work with navigation systems. Military aircraft have very complex navigation and targeting systems." Her voice was quiet and humble. The flight attendant, Jenny, approached their row with wide eyes. "Ma'am, are you really Colonel Phoenix?" "The Phoenix?" She could barely contain her excitement. Sarah nodded reluctantly. "That was my call sign, yes. But I'm retired now. I just want to travel like everyone else." The cabin fell completely silent as the reality sank in. This quiet, modest woman in jeans and a sweater, who had been helping an elderly passenger feel safe about flying and politely deflecting a chatty businessman's questions, was actually one of the most celebrated war heroes in modern American military history. Betty reached over and squeezed Sarah's hand. "My dear, what did you do in the military?" Her voice was filled with maternal pride and curiosity. Sarah took a deep breath, clearly uncomfortable with the attention but recognizing that there was no avoiding it now. "I flew F-16 Fighting Falcons for 20 years. Air-to-air combat, ground attack missions, search and rescue operations. I served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and several classified operations I can't discuss." A passenger from several rows back called out, "Did you really shoot down enemy planes?" Other passengers leaned forward to hear her answer. "I was involved in air-to-air combat on multiple occasions," Sarah replied simply. "But everything I accomplished was part of a team effort. Pilots, ground crews, intelligence officers, air traffic controllers, we all worked together." Mike was still staring at her in amazement. "But you seem so normal. You were just sitting there reading a book, being nice to Betty, answering my boring questions about navigation systems. I had no idea I was talking to a war hero." "That's the point," Sarah said with a small smile. "When we're not at war, we're just regular people. We go home, we read books, we fly commercial airlines like everyone else." Thunder had heard about Phoenix's humility and grace under pressure, but witnessing it firsthand was even more impressive than she had expected. Outside the aircraft windows, passengers could now see the two F-22 Raptors clearly as they moved into formation for the salute. The advanced fighters looked like something from a science fiction movie, sleek, angular, and obviously powerful beyond imagination. Captain Rodriguez announced over the intercom, "Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the left side windows. You are about to witness a military recognition salute, an extremely rare honor that reflects the highest respect for exceptional service to our country." Sarah remained in her seat, looking deeply uncomfortable with all the attention. "This really isn't necessary," she said quietly. "I was just doing my job." Betty wouldn't hear it. "Nonsense, dear. If the Pentagon specifically authorized fighter jets to salute you, then you've earned every bit of recognition you receive. Don't you dare minimize what you've accomplished." Other passengers began approaching Sarah's row to express their gratitude. A young man in an army uniform introduced himself. "Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Wilson, currently stationed at Fort Carson. It's an incredible honor to meet you. Your story is taught in our leadership courses." An elderly veteran wearing a Vietnam War hat made his way down the aisle. "Colonel, I served in the Navy during Vietnam. I know what combat is like and I know courage when I see it." "Thank you for your service, ma'am." Children began asking for autographs and their parents took photos. Sarah handled each interaction with grace and genuine warmth, signing napkins and answering age-appropriate questions about flying. In the F-22 cockpits, Hawk and Thunder were preparing for the salute with the precision and pride that defined their elite training. "Thunder, this is probably the most meaningful mission we've ever flown," Hawk said over their secure channel. "Phoenix represents everything we aspire to be as military pilots." "I couldn't agree more, Hawk. Her courage and skill under the worst possible conditions saved countless lives. She's the reason many of us became fighter pilots in the first place." The two F-22s moved into perfect formation alongside the commercial airliner. Their proximity allowed passengers to see incredible detail, the cockpit canopies, the angular stealth design, even the pilots in their helmets and oxygen masks. Sarah watched from her window as the fighters maneuvered with breathtaking precision. Despite her embarrassment at the attention, she felt deep respect for the skill these pilots were demonstrating. Flying formation with a large commercial aircraft required exceptional judgment and control. "Phoenix, if you can hear this transmission, this salute is for you," Hawk broadcast on the emergency frequency. Your service, courage, and sacrifice have inspired a generation of military aviators. It's the greatest honor of our careers to render this salute. Thunder added her voice. Colonel Chin, you've shown us what it means to be a warrior and a leader. Thank you for showing us the way. The F-22s executed their salute with military precision, a graceful roll that showcased both their advanced capabilities and the exceptional skill of their pilots. Passengers gasped and applauded as they witnessed this incredible display of respect and military precision. Sarah watched with tears in her eyes, finally understanding the deep meaning behind this gesture. It wasn't about her personally, it was about honoring the service and sacrifice of all military personnel who put their lives on the line for their country. As the F-22s completed their salute and resumed their patrol pattern, the atmosphere in the cabin had completely transformed. Passengers no longer saw Sarah as just another traveler, they saw her as the decorated hero she was, someone who had earned the respect of the most elite pilots in the world through courage, skill, and dedication to duty. The flight attendants quietly upgraded Sarah to first class, but she politely declined, preferring to remain with Betty and continue helping her overcome her fear of flying. She spent the remainder of the flight answering questions, sharing appropriate stories from her service, and demonstrating the humility and grace that had made her legendary not just as a pilot, but as a leader and human being. When Flight 847 landed at Los Angeles International Airport, Sarah was the last passenger to deplane. She had signed dozens of napkins for children, posed for photos with veterans and their families, and listened patiently to countless stories from passengers who had family members serving in the military. The flight crew presented her with a set of captain's wings as a token of their respect and gratitude. Colonel Chin, it's been the greatest honor of our careers to have you aboard our aircraft, Captain Rodriguez said. Your service to our country is an inspiration to all of us. As Sarah walked through LAX toward baggage claim, she looked like any other passenger once again. But she was followed by dozens of people who now knew the truth, that real heroes walk among us every day, flying commercial airlines, carrying their own bags, and serving their country with quiet dignity before returning to normal civilian life. The story of Flight 847 and the Phoenix salute spread rapidly through social media and aviation forums. Videos taken by passengers went viral, with millions of people viewing the tribute to the legendary pilot. News outlets picked up the story, and Sarah found herself reluctantly thrust into the spotlight as a symbol of military courage and dedication. But true to her character, Sarah Chin, call sign Phoenix, quickly returned to her quiet civilian life. She continued her work as an aerospace consultant, helping to train the next generation of military pilots and improve aircraft systems. She occasionally spoke at military academies and veteran events, always emphasizing teamwork, dedication, and service to something greater than oneself. The F-22 pilots, Hawk and Thunder, returned to Peterson Air Force Base with a new appreciation for the legacy of courage and excellence they had inherited from warriors like Phoenix. They had participated in honoring living history that day, saluting a pilot whose courage and skill had become legend in military aviation circles. For them, and for everyone aboard United Flight 847 that day, it served as a powerful reminder that heroism isn't always visible or obvious. Sometimes it's sitting quietly in seat 12A, reading a book, helping elderly passengers feel safe, and carrying the weight of extraordinary service with humble grace and dignity. Sarah Chin, Phoenix, had shown them what a true hero looks like, someone who had done extraordinary things in service to her country, but who remained fundamentally an ordinary person at heart, more concerned with helping others than with receiving recognition for her own achievements.